Hi, and welcome to Free Advice Friday. My name is Keri Barnum, and I am the Executive Director of New Shelves Books. Today, I am so pleased to announce a special guest, Beth Warstadt. Beth and I met at a Romance Writers of America conference when I had spoken about libraries, and it turns out Beth is a librarian at a elementary school in Georgia. We got to chatting, and I asked Beth if she'd join us here on Free Advice Friday to answer all of our questions about how to pitch librarians, where librarian buys books, and anything else we could possibly want to know. Beth was so gracious. She did agree to come on, and that's what you're going to check out right now.
There were two of us running. The other woman was really a manager. Her background is in marketing, and she was more of a manager of it. And I was the one with the kids finding books because my background is English. So she found a new job. She was setting up vendor booths for conventions. She left us on March the 6th, 2020. On March the 13th, they shut us down. And by the 15th, we were out of school for the rest of the year. So I took over right as we were shut down for COVID. And I found that to have some challenges.
Just a few.
And I'll tell you the primary challenge that I faced where they caught us off guard was I did not have enough ebooks. Because the kids needed to have access to the books when they couldn't go in the building.
Right.
And so I've been playing catch up, trying to, even still, trying to get ebooks in my catalog so that they can, we've still had virtual students. However, in Forsyth County, we've had very low numbers. So we're coming back to having almost everybody in the classroom. But now the kids are used to ebooks. And so I'm trying to have a nice catalog of ebooks in addition.
Now, does that include audiobooks as well? Ebooks and audiobooks?
I don't have a lot of audiobooks because they, some of them have the feature where when they put the book on, they can have it read to them. So they have the book in front of them as opposed to like Audible where you just listen to the book.
Yes.
So they do have that feature. It's more a case of you just open the book in the program that has that feature.
Right.
So
ebooks definitely, and I could see that. And two, ebooks are easier to sometimes I think to have in the classroom and read in the classroom, although all the kids have their own headphones now. But still probably a little bit easier. And you do, while audiobooks have their own mental stimulation, we still have to read every once in a while.
Well, and the little ones with their attention, I know you have children, so you know this, with little ones, they're very tactile. They have to have the book to hold. And my population is really good readers and they want books. In fact, they do it all. I'll go on to their history and see that they can only check out 2 books a week, and then they have two weeks to read those 2 books. But sometimes I'll go on and they've been very sneaky and they have 2 books checked out of the library, but they also have 2 ebooks checked out.
I mean, that's the kind of sneaky I'm kind of okay with.
I know, right? Me too.
I love it.
Yeah.
So how do you, when you are culling books, because as sad as it is, I mean, sometimes you have to get rid of books. How often do you do it? And what usually drives that decision? Is it like age of the books? Is it just condition of the books?
It's mostly what I do is I run a report that gives me the age of the books. And because what they want is for me to have the most current books that I can, I will go through and cull out some of the oldest books, go by whether or not it's been checked out. If a book hasn't been checked out in 15 years, then it's possible. However, if it's a book I know and I've loved, then I will feature it to see. Like this week, I realized that it'd been a long time since I had anybody check out the Emily Winsett books. Do you know those books?
I do. The mermaid books. My daughter's read them.
And so it had been a long time, but they're on a bottom shelf. So I pulled them up and gave them their own shelf with display, and they were gone the first day. So I won't necessarily cull a book if it's, I want to give it a chance if I can, because I'm an author and I sympathize with an author, and I hate to surrender to having an author's book taken out if I can give it a new life.
And is there kind of of course you want the most current collection possible. Is there kind of a rule of thumb of how old is too old for a library book as far as publication date?
Yeah, they'll say, like, they would be happier if my average age was 2010 and above. Mine is 2004, which is pretty good. I've talked to other libraries that are 1998 because, one of the problems is budget. And you don't want to take out a lot of books and leave your shelves empty.
Right. No, that's not good either. So rather to have some older books than to have empty shelves.
Yep. And you know what is very popular is Boxcar Children, which are very old. Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew. I'm not gonna take those books out when the children are still checking them out.
Yeah,
and their publication dates are, well, here's what's happened with Babysitters Club. That's very interesting that you said that, because Babysitters Club has gone into graphic novels. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yes.
Okay. And so the graphic novels I can't keep in. The kids, I pulled them in a separate section so I can stand in the front of the library and look back and see if there are any in. And they take them right off the cart. As soon as the kids put them on the cart, they're gone. Well, I noticed in the cafeteria that one of the girls was reading a Babysitters Club book that is new, but it looked like Babysitters Club books I just took out of the library a couple of years ago because they weren't moving, the old school Babysitters Club.
Right.
And guess what? They're re-releasing them. And I was speechless. I said, I can't believe it. I just took all of those books out of my library. And she was like, oh,
Well, what happened is that they just came out with a TV series, a Babysitters Club TV series. And I think it's 2 seasons in. And I will say it's got the same characters, different storylines that are more modern. But that is why Babysitters Club is coming roaring back in, is because of the TV series.
Well, and the same thing happened with the series of Unfortunate Events. Netflix did a series of Unfortunate Events series, and all of a sudden my books were moving off the shelf as fast as I could restock them.
Right. Now, when you're buying books, is there a rule of thumb that you use for how old is too old for a book to be bought when you're buying it new? So if I pitched you a book right now from 2019, would that be too old?
No. But I wouldn't go much before 18. There's a very popular series. You've probably seen it, and they have the caricature of the figure on the front, like Abraham Lincoln, George Washington. Now we have Stan Lee and Jeff Kinney, There are about 150 or so of those books. I do not have them all. But some of them were published before what I would consider my usual cutoff date. But because the information is timeless, and because the children are going to work with Benjamin Franklin every year.
Right.
So I'm going to stock one or two of those for sure. It doesn't matter how old they are.
You're right. Well, because that makes sense. So the rule of thumb, and I've always said this, is about 3 years for libraries, I think, when you're pitching a book. If it's older than that, it's probably a bit dated and not as worth it. Speaking of pitching books, what is your pet peeve of what you cannot stand when people pitch you books?
I haven't run into that a lot. Certainly, that relentlessness would be tough to handle when I'm so busy. But I don't know, compared to other librarians, if I'm maybe more sympathetic because I am, and I know the trouble, how hard it is. But certainly if you keep contacting me over and over and over again, I'm going to start erasing your emails without even reading them.
Right. Who knows where those went? And is there a best way to pitch or contact a librarian in your opinion and experience?
I do like, phone calls are tough. Emails are better. But I have the best of intentions to talk to every single author that calls or writes, to respond to them all. I can't always do that. And I have also a bunch of sticky notes of people that I've heard from that I want to at least give a hearing. But it's hard. It's hard. The time is hard. People don't realize what all a librarian has to do, because in an elementary school in particular, the kids come up to me and they stand and they go, I need something to read. Like, what do you want to read? A chapter book. Okay, I've got 6,000 chapter books. Can we narrow it down? And so I'll do that with the kids, and that pretty much fills my day. And then, if I'm going to order books, then I have to do all the research and everything. I have to make displays. If you're trying to sell me a book, you want me to make a display because that's what they pick up. And so displays, and also for holidays, Christmas is coming up. I have a display for Thanksgiving right now. I have to redo the bulletin board. A lot of teachers put their bulletin board up for all year, but I changed mine. It's all about, it's not just that I want them to read Harry Potter. It's that I want them, because remember we talked at the meeting about your friends. Help me with the last name.
It's Joe. Oh goodness, I could have told you. It's Joe and Sabella.
Yes.
The series is Great Books for Boys.
Yes. And I've been in touch with them thanks to you. My boys they are ravenous for those books. I cannot keep them in. And I emailed Joe and Sabella and told them that what happens is the word is spreading. Where's the battle books that David is reading? And then yesterday, the day before, I had a girl come in who, fifth grade girl, and she is doing a project on Cold War and on Korean War. I don't have much on the Korean War. And so she took the great battles of the Korean War, and she took that, and that's going to be great information for her. Yeah. So I want them to not just want to read Harry Potter or Percy Jackson or any of that. I want them to consider books a tremendous source of information. and I want to feed their curiosity and help them understand whatever you're interested in, there's a book about it.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's why I'm constantly changing displays and the bulletin board to have them look at it and then come in and say to me, I want a book about
this or that. Well, and it's true, because I blow my kids' minds when I say this, but I say before there was Google, there was a library.
Imagine that.
I know. And so that is where, I remember when I was a kid and I had a report, I went to the library and I asked the librarians and I used the computers. And so that is something that when kids realize everything that's right there, sometimes it's very exciting. Like with those books, the Great Battles for Boys series is great.
It's a great one.
When you get pitched books, is there a certain time of year that's best? Is there a time of year where you're cut off for the year and you don't buy any more books?
No, I can't say that that's the case, but if they hit me during book fair, I've got that 2 weeks, and really the week before when I'm no good for anything. Obviously the beginning of the year is no good. So I would say in that case, September is best, because I have August, I'm starting school, and my book fair is in October. Then we get to the holidays and we have a week off for Thanksgiving and we have 2 weeks off for Christmas. So that's rough.
Right.
January, February, March, particularly March, I have a dearth of time. And what I would really like to do this year, if I can, is set up author visits. Now I can't do a lot. I don't have time. And now those author visits are going to have to be screened for approval. But what that does for the author, you're not going to sell more than a book or two to me. That's all I'm going to buy. But if we can do an author visit, then we order the books from a local bookstore, and the children buy the books, and then the author is available to sign them. Of course, we've been having to do virtual.
Yes.
And so that's a little different in terms of signing, although some of the authors, if we give them enough notice, they can send us books signed that we can then sell. And that's a more lucrative, not lucrative is the wrong word because it sounds so greedy.
But that's the way to get more books into hands aside from just books. So you do author visits. Do you pay for those visits?
No. Not
Usually volunteer.
usually. No, not for an elementary school. Now, would I consider it? Sure. Depends on how much. I have my budget for the entire year for the Media Center is $900. Think about that. If I'm going to even 100 books, I'm off the charts. So I use the book fair to earn money. This year's book fair, I earned about $3,000.
Wow.
So yes, that will give me money, but some of that is enhanced if I buy the books directly from Scholastic. So I split it so that I'll buy some from Scholastic and get a great deal. And then I'll buy some, I have some in my Media Center account to buy books. Also, I do a program called Birthday Book Club. Do you have that at your school?
Is that where every child gets a book for the birthday?
No.
Okay.
No, what we do is we offer parents the opportunity to make a donation to the Media Center. And what we do is for $20, I have a collection of new books, and their child picks one of those books, and we put a sticker in the front that says that it was donated for the birthday of, and it'll be in the library forever with that sticker in the front. They get to check it out first for 2 weeks, and and then they also get a little treat bag. So they love it.
That's a fun idea.
And always, well, it's not unique or original, but it does give me a chance to get more books in the library.
Mhm. That is some creative problem solving though, and whoever started that, genius.
Yes. And you get some extra play when the children who are not in the birthday book club are going up to the table and going, I want that book. What have I got to do for that book? Well, somebody's got to pick it first. And so then they're going around, will you pick this book? Pick that book. I want that
When's your birthday?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
I've been out of luck. I have summer birthday.
Well, and see, they try that. No. If your birthday is in July, then we do it in August. If your birthday is in June, then we do it in May.
Oh, see, you thought of everything.
Oh, of course.
Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
And
I
love
like
it.
So if authors want to donate books to you, do you take, I know you have a
Yes.
panel now, but do you take donated books?
Yes, Joe and Sabella donated. They've been so excited because of me telling them how excited the boys are. And we're hoping to maybe arrange a question with Joe for the boys. But the problem is these 9 and 10-year-old boys, when you say, do you have any questions for the author? They're kind of like, no, they're not advanced enough to
Right.
be able to. So it would be a case of me having questions to ask him and then responding to those questions when he made a comment. He and his wife sent us 3 books signed. And so I have a display of those books and I have a sticker that says signed by author. So whenever I get a book signed by author, I do that.
You do that. And that's really fun. And that's special. I know my kids like to look at my bookshelf where I have some signed copies and they're all, is this really real, Mom? I'm like, well, I didn't sign it. So yes, I should hope so. It's extra special.
I wanted to tell you that one of the best marketing tools I've ever seen that worked for me, for my school, was when I did a Follett book fair instead of Scholastic. They're books by Grabenstein. They're I don't know if you've seen them, Home Sweet Hotel, and they're
yes,
those books. When they had a new book coming out, they sent brief, like brochure type chapters of the first chapter of the book, and it had the cover in color, and then the first chapter or 2 of the book. I don't remember exactly how many. The kids loved them. They were free. And as soon as they had done reading them, they were all looking for the book. The problem is that's expensive. That's expensive. And I know
but the idea holds that, especially for kids, if you get them started on reading something, and kids in particular, small feels manageable. That's why the comic types, the comic style book is so popular, because it's not as intimidating as a row of words on a page. And so if you can get them to read, a little pamphlet type of thing, then they are hungry for it and they're ready to read it. And that is why those little, even like bookmarks, if you've got bookmarks or something like that, those are really smart marketing tools for, especially at this age. I think all ages, but especially at the younger age when it doesn't feel as intimidating.
And I am more interested in giveaways for my kids than I am in something for myself. So bookmarks, the brochures, pencils, whatever you do, think more in terms of providing it for my children to have, because I can get them excited over that, and then they'll demand the book. And it spreads by word of mouth, so that if they get frustrated enough that I don't have it in the library, they'll go buy it.
Yeah. And I love that. And it's so true. I mean, kids are pretty outspoken with what they want, and Christmas is coming up.
That's right. That's right. And I don't really hold books, but if they really want a book, and I tell them, okay, I'll watch for it to come in, and then I'll pull it and call you when it comes in. And I've done that a few times when the child has then told me, oh, my mom already bought it for me, so I don't need that anymore.
Okay, then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. When authors are pitching you their books, what are the things that you always want to see? If it were me and I was telling authors, I'd say title, ISBN, some type of description, not too long, and the book cover. Is that what you look for? Or are there different
Yes.
things you look for?
My most important thing on the cover's important, because if it's not an attractive cover, the kids won't read it.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what the content is. And in fact, that's the problem with some of the older books. It may be a great book, but if the cover is, and that's one thing I ran into a problem with some of my diversity books, because when I pulled them, if they were older, the cover was not attractive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's key. The content is everything for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about content. And also, I use the books not only for getting them information, but also for having them look at the writing and trying to improve their own writing, but by looking, and it's not just me, the teachers do that too. And so that's why that chapter is very important. So content, a sample of the writing, reviews, that kind of thing.
Right. And that's really good. And how do you find books? Like, if obviously people pitch you books, but how do you find books if you just say, I really need books for 9-year-olds? How do you find them? Where do you look for new books?
Well, I go online and I type in what I need, because I don't have to do safe search.
Right.
They assume that I can be discreet on my own. And that's how I found Joe's books. I just searched I needed books on war for elementary school. And his books came up. That's how I found it. What else did I searched also and found a new series called Girls Survive. And now, whereas Joe's books are nonfiction, Girls Survived is fiction. It's a fictional character in a historical situation. It's historical fiction. And boy, you cannot believe how they are consuming. They are just obsessed with those books.
We're excited. Well, it makes history. As a child, I read the Dear America books, which were like journals. And I just pulled out my box of my books, and I was looking through with my daughter, because she's like, I need a book about the Titanic, Mom. And I was like, I have a journal one. And she was so excited, because it was like, getting the inside thoughts of a teenager and things like that. And so when you have fictional characters, I mean, that's why we love historical fiction, right? Because we feel like we're getting marginally smarter while reading fun stuff. And so I think that's one of particularly Emma, my daughter, who's about to turn 11, has just started to explore that a little bit more, to where I like to think she knows she's learning, but maybe she doesn't. And that's okay too, because she's excited and she's reading it. She went through, I think, 3 journals in about 3 weeks, and she's not usually my big reader. She'll read those comic style books, but she's not my chapter book reader. My son, who's 8, well, during the pandemic, I worked from home. During the pandemic, when he was home, the rule was when you were done with school, you couldn't be in the room with mommy while I'm working unless you're reading. The child read a chapter book a day, because he wanted to be in the room. And so he likes to read those chapter books, but Emma, not so much. the journals are good for her.
I have to tell you something funny about those Dear America books. They also have, those are books that I refuse to cull. Even if they don't get checked out, I have a whole shelf of just Dear America books. They have different authors, but I pulled them all together with a call number DEA so that the kids can find them. But there is also sort of a subset of those books in the same series of true, of real historical figures, like Cleopatra is one, and Marie Antoinette is one. Well, I had some girls, I had 2 5th grade girls last year that discovered those books. They slurped them up. It was just, they couldn't get enough. And they came to me and with the back of the book, and they said, we want these two, Mary Queen of Scots and Elizabeth I. And I don't have those, and they are out of print. And so to buy one, it's a collector's edition. I have to pay $40 for it, and I can't do that. Right. So I sent word out to other librarians. Does anybody have these books? And one of the local librarians said, I've got them. You can have them. I haven't had them checked out in, 10 years. And so I got them, and the girls read them. They just loved them.
I love that. It's excited to see people who don't usually read start to read, or when kids, I mean, they're just, as you said earlier, they're sponges, and it's really amazing to get that. And so straight online. And for those of you, we've talked about Joe and Sabella. So Joe has written a series of books called Great Battles for Boys. And I worked with Joe and Sabella when Joe's series was newer. And when I met Beth at the writers conference in Atlanta, we were talking about libraries, and somehow she's like, I just found these new books and they're all about battles. And I looked at her, I said, Great Battles for Boys? She's like, yes, they're fantastic. And I was like, I know the author. I've worked with the author. So I was able to do an email introduction, and that was super fun. It was
fun.
It was a fun way to meet and connect people. And it's also fun to be able to go, to Joe, who wrote the series, and be like, guess what happened? I met someone totally randomly that loves your books. And so you never know who's going to be reading or discovering your books. You really just don't.
You don't. And you never know what the kids are going to grab. And then it goes by word of mouth. I want that book that he's reading. And do you have any more of these? That kind of thing. So absolutely. You never know. You never know.
All right, let's see. We're right at the 11 o'clock, and we want to respect your time. I think we've got most of our questions answered. Is any last advice that you would give our authors as they go forth and pitch librarians of all types of libraries? Any tips?
I do. One thing I would consider is, instead of courting the individual librarian, because we represent 1 or 2 books, I would say contact the county media specialist, because she will be coordinating our meetings, and ask if you can speak to us as a group. I think that will be a more productive use of your time. And I believe we've already done that one time with an author, and it's almost a guaranteed sell. If you take the time and come and talk with us, then, we will almost definitely try to put your book in our library. And if it gets approved by committee before you even talk to us, all the better.
Right.
And I think that's, I made some notes, but I think that's my primary. If you can build a relationship with me, that's great. But again, please understand that the kids are my first priority. And so, if you come in and I've got 5, 6-year-olds standing around my desk all wanting to find Pinkalicious, then I'm afraid I'll have to leave the conversation.
Right. So it's best to get you when you're not busy. Email is better than
Yeah.
phone.
And school for us, school lets out at 2:30.
Mhm.
Now, half of our schools, because we don't have enough buses and
Yeah.
we don't have enough bus drivers, we are on a half of us get out at 2:30 and half of us get out at 3:30. But if you can call, a little later in the day, you're more likely to get me
Yeah.
when I can talk. Once
Yep.
they're gone, it's very quiet.
Right. That's when you actually have a minute to go,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So that's
Now I
great.
can shelve those 1,000 books that came back today.
Right. Because your job's definitely not done yet. Now,
Yeah.
Jane is asking about the state media specialist. So you mentioned the media specialist for your school system, but do you ever work with, or should people pitch the state media specialist associations?
I can't speak for other schools. I personally do not have much to do with that. But maybe other librarians do. I mean, you can, as I told you before, I was a textbook rep in years past. And so, you just do your research and find out who the decision makers are.
Sure.
And
That makes
that would be, that would be some way to go with that.
Love it. Well, Beth, thank you so much for your time. And if our friends over on Free Advice Friday or YouTube replay, if they want to find you, where's the best place to find you, to look at your books and to chat with you?
Well, I have a blog, bethwarstadt.com, and I'm also on Facebook at Beth Warstadt author.
Perfect.
I'm on Twitter, but I don't go on there very much.
Yeah, I don't like it. I have a moment. Sometimes I'm really Twitter into it. Sometimes I'm like, wow, it's exhausting. They want me to post again.
I'm on Facebook almost every day. So
love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've put Beth's website right up there. And we have quite a few people with children's books who want to pitch you. Is there a easiest or best way? Would it be easiest if I make a list and send some options over for you to take a look at, or?
Sure. That would be great. I have to tell you, you guys have some competition. I have a 10-year-old who's written a book. She wants me to put it in the Librarian, absolutely. So she doesn't even have to have an ISBN.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess some people get special privileges.
That's exactly right.
Oh my goodness.
So, yes, if you can make me a list, because if they start calling me at school, I won't be able to answer all the calls.
Too much. So guys, if you want to connect with Beth personally for her books, visit her website. If you have a book you think would fit well in her elementary school, email it to me, please, at info@newshelves.com. I will make a list and get it over to Beth so that we don't overwhelm her and that we can respect her time that way. And Beth, again, this was just it was so good to have you here to get our questions answered. And I love it because not only did we learn new things, but you also confirmed some things that I always love when people tell me I'm right.
Yes.
But
yes, you
confirming
absolutely are.
that you can pitch as an indie author, and people and librarians do buy from Amazon. They'll buy wherever they have money from, I think.
That's right. That's right. And if you send me the books, I can promise that any book you send me, the title, I will look at that book and I will research that book, even if I can't get on the phone with the author. I will look for that book and see if it's one that I think my kids would like. Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate you so much. Everybody, let's tell Beth how awesome she was in the chat, because she was. We appreciate you, and thank you so much for being here. For everybody else, next week is The day after Thanksgiving, I'll probably still be here. Honestly, last year I did the Friday after Thanksgiving and we had a lot of people on. So I plan on being here next week. If you have questions, show up as well. If not, have a great Thanksgiving, everybody, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.